Hey there, and welcome to the very first episode of Master Your Money, Budgeting, Saving, and Debt-Free Living. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a show for anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed by money, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure out where your cash goes every month, or dreaming of that day you can say goodbye to debt for good. My name is Nate Tanner, and this podcast is part of the Triggator philosophy, a movement that's all about helping you stop reacting to money and start mastering it. We're not here for perfection. We're here for real progress, real tools, and real transformation. And today, we're kicking things off strong. To really understand why this podcast matters, I think it's only fair that I start with a bit of my own story. Before I go too far, I just want to let you know that I do have a cold today, and it's a terrible week to have a cold with us launching. So I hope that you'll give me a little bit of leniency with my voice as we go through, because I've unfortunately been flat in bed for a couple of days, but we're starting to feel better, and hopefully we'll be able to make it through this together and have a good launch week. So back to my story. I grew up in a home where hard work was a way of life. And my dad, he was a teacher, and my mom, she was a secretary. They both had worked not only their primary job, but they worked second jobs, they did side gigs, and they even tried their hands at some small businesses. You know, these small businesses went from actually brick and mortar stores where we had a video rental store. Prior to the days of Blockbuster, we also had a party shop that was run. But also, I remember my mom would do things like, we had a local boutiquing group that she would create different crafts and stuff and try to sell them at boutiques and such. So my parents were very hard workers, and they instilled that upon us, all of us kids. And, you know, money, it wasn't really talked about a ton in our home. It was kind of a vague topic. And my parents didn't talk much about it openly. They were very private about it. But they did teach me to save, to work hard, and to try to be a good steward of the money that I earned. I was raised to avoid debt, but when I turned 18, the temptation got the better of me, and I had always loved technology. So at the time, I needed a computer, and I needed not just any computer, but I needed the top of the line, best one that money could buy. So I opened my first credit account, and I had no clue at how debt or credit or anything like that really worked. By the age of 19, I was in a real mess, because not only did I have this debt, but I had a few others that I, was trying to work through, and I didn't have much money. And things actually got a lot worse, because I was about to leave on a 2-year Christian service mission. And part of leaving on this mission, I had to have all of my financial affairs in order so that I could go and focus on service for a couple of years. So I needed to figure out what to do with my debt. And in my infinite teenage wisdom, I thought, hey, I'll give this stuff that I bought to a neighbor. And they were someone who was around my age, and they honestly didn't have any more knowledge than I did about how credit or debt worked. And I thought, we'll change the billing address and it'll be theirs. And I figured, boom, problem solved. Well, not exactly. You see, I came back 2 years later, and I was ready to start the next chapter in my life. And I had fallen in love, and I started to save up for an engagement ring. And I was so close to having enough cash for that ring, but I was a couple hundred short. So I figured, hey, it's no big deal. I'll just finance the rest so that I can give this amazing ring to this amazing lady. But when the jeweler ran my credit, I got denied. And I was like, denied? What? Why? And I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. So I did a little digging, and I found out that it had been 18 months since my neighbor, who I had given the computer to and had since moved away, and I'd since moved away, and all of these things had happened. It had been 18 months since they had made any payments on that old credit account. And it turns out that changing the billing address doesn't magically transfer the responsibility. I was still legally on the hook, and the payments had stopped long ago. So now I had destroyed credit, debt tied to stuff that I didn't even own anymore, and worst of all, no ring for my sweetheart. And I wish I could say that was my turning point. But nope, the early years of my marriage were full of financial chaos. My plan was basically 2 bullet points. Bullet point number 1, if there's money in my checking account, I have money to spend. That's not a great strategy for any sort of savings. That's not a great strategy for anything really, because if I had money in my account, I'd spend it. And there was always a lot of month at the end of the money, if you know what I mean. I was living worse than paycheck to paycheck. I was living in, I didn't have money, before more money was coming in. And so I had to kind of try to figure things out. And that kind of led me to, bullet point number 2, where if I could afford the monthly payment, I can afford the debt. And that extended to credit cards too, because I thought, you know what? I can afford my minimum payment on the credit card. So, even though my checking account is empty, I can throw it on the credit card and, still get what I want, and everything will work out because I can make that payment. And that was the full extent of my money management. And with that logic, I was always broke no matter how much money I earned. And I just never had money. Then came the breaking point. I'd been married for a few years, and I initially started with a simple call center job where I was just, taking customer service calls, doing that sort of thing. I worked my way where I was supervising a team in the call center. And then I had an amazing opportunity to go work for another company where I was able to be a data analyst, because I was really interested in computers and really interested in things like that. And when I moved, all of these movements, of course, had, their salary increases and things like that. And I, felt like things were going fair, except the fact that I never had any money. And like I was saying, that is when the breaking point came in. And the company that I had worked for and had what was a decent job, they eliminated that job and I no longer had one. Overnight, my income had vanished. And I found myself in a situation where I had to check couch cushions for loose change. And that is literally what I did. On more than one occasion, I had to decide whether the handful of coins that I had should go towards putting a little gas in the car or buying some food. That was the moment that changed everything for me. I made a promise to myself. I made a promise that when I get a new job, I am going to learn everything I can about money so I never end up in that spot again. And I kept that promise. I dove headfirst into learning, budgeting, borrowing, lending, saving, investing, banking, mindset. No topic was off limits if it could help me improve. And that drive and desire for education, it even led me to pursue an MBA. Because I didn't just want to understand personal finance, I wanted to understand how money worked at every level. But here's the thing. One of the hardest and most powerful lessons I learned wasn't about numbers. It wasn't about math. It wasn't about income versus expense. It wasn't about return on investment. It wasn't about how to maximize capitalization theory. None of that. It was about mindset. My relationship with money was broken. I had triggers, emotional blind spots, and habits that sabotaged me. Once I faced those and started healing my mindset, everything began to change. Today, I am no longer a slave to my money. I am the one in control. Every dollar has a job. Every dollar has a name, and every dollar has a destiny. Some of those dollars go towards necessities. Some of those dollars go towards fun, and many go towards the future. I have felt the fear. I have felt the anger. I have felt the frustration. And I have felt the shame. And now I want to help you change your story. That is why this podcast exists. My mission is to teach you what I have learned so that you don't have to hit rock bottom before turning things around. I want to help you feel peace, purpose, and power. I want to help you feel the peace, the purpose, and the power that comes when you finally master your money. So that's a bit of my story, where I come from, what I've been through, and how I got here. And if you've ever felt stuck, stressed, or flat out frustrated with your finances, I want you to know you're not alone. I've been there. And that's exactly why this podcast exists. There is so much information out there about money. But let's be honest, a lot of it is confusing, a lot of it is overwhelming, or it may even be filled with guilt or judgment. Even sometimes people will tell you what you want to hear, and they'll just feed you what you want to know, thinking that that's the answer, to just give you what you want. I can tell you that that's not what this podcast is about. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to talk about real solutions. We're going to talk about things that work. And it's going to help you to make your financial journey a successful one. What I needed back then was someone to break it down in a way that was simple, real, but also encouraging. I didn't need a lecture. I needed a guide. And that's what Master Your Money is here to be, your guide in your financial journey. This podcast is for real people, people with bills, responsibilities, goals, and probably some financial baggage that you don't want to talk about at parties. I'm here to help you get unstuck, to show you how you can go from surviving to thriving, even if it feels impossible right now. Whether you're trying to build a budget that actually works, save money when there's not really much to save, or break free from debt that's been hanging over your head, this show is for you. You won't find perfection here. You'll find progress, grace, and practical steps. We're doing this together, one episode at a time. And I truly believe this. If I can do it, if I can go from broke and overwhelmed to confident and in control, you can too. So now that you know why this podcast exists, let me give you a sneak peek on what you can expect moving forward. And also how this show is designed to actually help you start mastering your money. This show is going to be full of practical, real-life money tips. But we're also going to dig into the mindset and emotional side of finances. Because money isn't just math, it's personal. There is a reason it's called personal finance. We'll talk about budgeting strategies that actually work. We're going to talk about how to save money when it feels like you don't have any extra. And we're going to talk about ways to tackle debt without shame and be able to make progress. We'll also talk about things like how to reset your mindset around money, how to deal with the guilt or fear when it comes to finances, and how to build habits that stick. This podcast is solo hosted. It's just going to be you and me having real, honest conversations about money. I'm not going to tell you just what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you about things that drive success. There's fads out there. There's ideas out there, that are just temporary, that, people throw around. It's kind of like dieting. There's always a new diet. There's always the new thing. There's always something else. But when you really look at it, there are some tried and true things that can help you meet your goals with your diet and that create good health. The same is true about finances. There are things that work, that stand the test of time. There are strategies that you can put into place that will change your financial journey. Those are the things we're going to talk about. Those are what are going to be key to your success and your journey. As I mentioned, I'm going to be here to be your guide. And I'm here each day to guide you through budgeting tips, saving strategies, debt payoff plans, and most importantly, how to shift that mindset around money. I'll also be doing some challenges along the way. We'll be doing things like no spend weekends, saving sprints, and budget resets, just to help you put these principles into action. I'll also be sharing success stories from you because I believe in the power of community and encouragement. If you've paid off a debt, hit a savings milestone, or just made progress in your financial mindset, I want to celebrate that with you. I want to share those wins on the show. Help others to be encouraged by your successes. I plan to take listener questions too, because this podcast, it needs to be a two-way conversation. It can't just be me talking all the time. We need to talk about your struggles, your problems, where you need help. And that's what we want to attack. I want to guide you through those things to help you to reach your journey successfully. Think of this podcast as a judgment-free zone where we get real about money, but also stay hopeful about what's possible. So whether you're just starting or restarting for the 10th time, this podcast is your space to grow, learn, and finally take control of your money. Before we wrap up, I want to share something important, the meaning behind the name Triggator, and why it's at the heart of everything that I teach. Triggator isn't just a brand or a company. It's a set of core financial philosophies. It's built on 3 foundational principles: budget, save, pay off debt. That's where the try in Triggator comes from. 3 simple steps, 3 simple, powerful pillars that can transform your financial life. But there's another side to the name, a deeper meaning, and it starts with a question. Have you ever watched how an alligator hunts? On Discovery Channel or National Geographic, you'll see it. An alligator lying low in the water, barely visible, silent, creeping, waiting. And just when its prey lets its guard down, snap, it explodes from the water and it pulls its victim under. And that's how unexpected and sometimes even expected expenses work. You create a budget, you're feeling motivated, you've got a plan, and then out of nowhere, your car breaks down. Your kid has to go and get a cast for a broken arm. Or some of the things that could be expected where back to school comes around, or maybe a holiday, or some sort of event where you need to buy a gift. And all of a sudden, your bank account explodes and your plan is in ruin. These financial alligators lie in wait just below the surface until they snap and drag your plan under. Triggator is about avoiding that trap. It's about being prepared. It's not just about escaping financial chaos. It's about building the kind of life where those expenses don't take you down. Because you're ready, you've got a plan, and you're in control. That's what this podcast and the whole Triggator mission is all about. Helping you budget, save, pay off debt, and avoid the financial alligators that sabotage your financial mastery. Now, before I let you go, I want to give a quick preview of what's coming this week because we are just getting started. This week, I've got 4 foundational episodes lined up, each one designed to give you a quick win or a fresh perspective on your money. Tomorrow, we're diving into Budgeting 101. We'll break down what a budget really is, why it's not about restriction, and how to build one that actually fits your real life. Wednesday's episode is all about saving money when it feels impossible. I'll share mindset shifts, creative tips, and real strategies you can start using right away, even if you think there's no room in your budget. Thursday, we're talking about debt, specifically how to face it without fear or shame. I'll walk you through some key principles, some payoff methods, and how to pick something that works for you. Then on Friday, I've got an episode called 5 Money Moves that you can make this weekend. Some simple, actionable steps that will give you a quick sense of control and momentum as you head into next week. So make sure you've subscribed because this week is all about building momentum and giving you a foundation that lasts. If this episode resonated with you, if you're ready to take control of your money, I'd love for you to stick around. Go ahead and follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes this week and beyond. And if you found value here, it would mean so much if you would leave a quick rating or review. It helps more people find the show and tells me that it's making a difference. I also want to connect with you on social media. You can find Triggator on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. No, we are not on TikTok yet. I'm still waiting to find some dancing alligators before we launch there. Just search @Triggator on any of these platforms, and I'll be there sharing extra tips, behind the scenes thoughts, and celebrating your wins. I also hope to have a little humor in there as well to help brighten your day and help you get through some of those times that may be a little more difficult. Oh, and if while you were listening, you thought, wow, this is exactly what my friend, my cousin, or even that annoying coworker needs to hear, then share it with them. Let's spread the love, the learning, and maybe even a little less financial stress. And if you have a question, a success story, or just want to say hi, send me an email at podcast@Triggator.com. I'd love to hear from you and maybe even feature your story on a future episode. Let me leave you with this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are absolutely not stuck. No matter where you're starting from, you can build a better financial future. It won't always be perfect. It won't always be easy, but it will be worth it, and you don't have to do it alone. This is Master Your Money, Budgeting, Saving, and Debt-Free Living, and your journey starts now. Thanks for listening to episode 1. I am honored to be part of your journey. I'll see you tomorrow.